You see this face every day. You know him as the seventh President of the United States, the man on the $20 bill. But history books lied to you. Before he was a statesman, he was a killer. Before he ruled America, he broke every law to build it. This is the true story of Andrew Jackson. May 30th, 1806. The Kentucky border, a foggy morning. Two men stand 24 feet apart. The command is given. A gunshot rips through the silence. A .70 caliber lead bullet slams into a man's chest. It shatters two ribs and lodges just 1 inch from his heart. Blood instantly soaks his white shirt. Any normal man would collapse. Any normal man would scream in agony. But this man is not normal. He doesn't even stagger. He simply presses his left hand over the wound to slow the bleeding and slowly, terrifyingly slowly, raises his own pistol. His opponent, the best marksman in the state, freezes in horror. He cannot believe his enemy is still standing. The wounded man smiles coldly, takes careful aim, and pulls the trigger. On this day, Andrew Jackson taught the world a brutal lesson. You might shoot me first, but you are not leaving here alive. You know his face. You see him every time you pull a $20 bill out of an ATM. History books will dryly tell you that Andrew Jackson was the seventh President of the United States, the founder of the Democratic Party, and a war hero. But they forget to mention the most important part. The man was a psychopath. He fought in over 100 duels. He carried so many bullets in his body that friends said he rattled like a bag of marbles. He was the only president in history to personally beat his own assassin half to death with a cane. In Washington, they called him a politician, but in his soul, he remained a gangster. So how did this madman end up in the White House? Jackson's rage didn't come from nowhere. It was forged in the fire of the Revolutionary War. He was only 13 years old when he joined the militia to fight the British Empire. He was just a child courier, but he already had the heart of a warrior. One day he was captured. A British officer, seeing a dirty boy, threw his dusty boots at him and barked, "Clean these." Jackson looked him dead in the eye and spat on the ground. "I am a prisoner of war, sir, not your servant." The officer flew into a rage. He drew his saber and swung, aiming for the boy's head. Jackson managed to raise his hand. The blade sliced his palm to the bone and left a deep scar across his forehead. He would wear that scar for the rest of his life as a reminder: never submit. The war took everything from him. His eldest brother died of heat stroke in battle. His other brother was starved to death by the British in captivity. His mother died of cholera while nursing wounded soldiers. At 14, Andrew was a complete orphan, alone, sick with smallpox, penniless in a world that wanted him dead. That was when he decided, if the world is cruel, I will be crueler. Years passed. 1812. The British Empire returns to destroy America once and for all. Their target, New Orleans. Standing against an armada of professional soldiers is Andrew Jackson, but he has no real army. He has a ragtag group of farmers, Native Americans, free black men, and pirates. Yes, you heard that right. General Jackson cut a deal with the notorious smuggler and killer Jean Lafitte. "Give me cannons and men," Jackson said, "and I will pardon your crimes." January 8, 1815. The British elite, the men who defeated Napoleon, march forward in perfect formation. They expect an easy victory over Jackson's dirty rabble. But Jackson had prepared hell for them. His men fired from behind barricades of cotton bales with sniper-like precision. The battle lasted just 30 minutes. The result was shocking. The British lost 2,000 men, killed and wounded. How many did Jackson lose? 71. It was a slaughter. After this battle, his soldiers gave him the nickname that stuck forever, Old Hickory, because he was as tough, knotty, and unbreakable as hickory wood. When this barbarian won the presidential election in 1828, the Washington elite were terrified. They called him the American Caesar and predicted the end of the Republic, and he confirmed their fears on day one. For his inauguration, he invited the common people, not the diplomats. Thousands of farmers, laborers, and hunters in muddy boots stormed the White House. The party spiraled out of control. The mob got drunk, started fighting, breaking expensive furniture, and smashing thousands of dollars worth of china trying to get to the free punch. Bodyguards literally had to drag the president out through a window to stop him from being crushed by his adoring fans. To get the people out of the residence, the staff had to use a trick. They carried barrels of whiskey out onto the front lawn. Only then did the mob leave the building. Thus began the age of Jackson, the age of chaos. But even as president, he never stopped being a killer. His honor and the honor of his wife, Rachel, was worth more to him than life itself. That duel in 1806, the one we started with, happened because of Rachel. A famous marksman named Charles Dickinson made the mistake of insulting her name. Jackson knew Dickinson was faster, so he came up with a suicidal plan to take the bullet. He wore a loose-fitting coat to hide the outline of his body and allowed Dickinson to fire first. When the bullet slammed into his chest, Jackson refused to fall by sheer force of will. Dickinson screamed, "My God, have I missed him?" and stepped back in terror. Jackson straightened up, bleeding, and cold-bloodedly shot him dead. The bullet was never removed from the president's chest. It was too close to his heart. It caused him agonizing pain for the next 40 years. Jackson often drank lead acetate water and bled himself right in the Oval Office trying to stop the pain. But he never regretted that shot. We cannot tell this story without mentioning the darkness. Jackson was a man of his time, cruel and uncompromising. He believed that American land belonged to white settlers. He was the one who signed the infamous Indian Removal Act. When the U.S. Supreme Court declared it illegal, Jackson simply smirked. The judge has made his decision. Now let him enforce it. He ignored the Constitution and sent the army to evict the Cherokee tribes. Thousands died on the march that history remembers as the Trail of Tears. To some, he was a hero, a defender of the common man. To others, the devil in the flesh. By the end of his term, he was 67 years old. He was a walking skeleton, tormented by old wounds and tuberculosis. But his spirit was unbreakable. January 30th, 1835. Jackson is leaving a funeral. Suddenly, an unemployed painter named Richard Lawrence steps out of the crowd. He pulls a pistol, aims at the president's heart from 6 feet away, and pulls the trigger. A loud click, a misfire. The chance of such a misfire in dry weather is 1 in a million. Lawrence doesn't panic. He throws down the first gun, pulls out a second one, and fires again, point blank. Another click, another misfire. At this moment, any other man would run for cover. The security guards froze in shock, but not Andrew Jackson. Screaming with rage, the 67-year-old man charged at his assassin. He began beating him with his heavy cane with such force that Lawrence fell to the ground, begging for mercy. History records a curious fact. Bodyguards had to pull the president off the assassin to stop him from beating the poor guy to death right on the steps of the Capitol. Later, both pistols were tested. They were in perfect condition. They fired perfectly every time. Why did they misfire at that exact second? Jackson's supporters said it was providence. His enemies whispered, "The devil looks after his own." Jackson died in his bed at the age of 78. When asked on his deathbed if he had any regrets, he didn't mention the dead Native Americans, the ruined economy, or the wars. He rasped, "I only regret 2 things, that I didn't shoot Henry Clay and I didn't hang John C. Calhoun." He left the world just as he lived in it, loudly and scandalously. Even his funeral turned into a farce. His favorite parrot, Pole, having learned words from his master over the years, began cursing so profusely during the ceremony that the bird had to be carried out of the church. Andrew Jackson left behind a strong America, thousands of graves, and the legend of a president who was made not of flesh and blood, but of iron and gunpowder. Was he a monster? Perhaps, but he was certainly the most dangerous man to ever sit in the Oval Office.